Let's talk about what we think is going on at Michigan and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on Step Mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time today. I want to talk about what's going on Jim Harbaugh's Michigan. This is going to be a topic that I believe every sports talk show host in America with a college football audience is going to go at, because Michigan is a blue blood. It is one of those programs that we all expect to be very good. As a matter of fact, I think that expectations for Michigan are kind of like expectations for Texas, which is to say, even when they aren't good, people expect them to be good. And what this comes down to, I believe, is alumni base and money. Michigan has a ton of it, just like Texas, just like Notre Dame, just like Ohio State, just like Oklahoma. One of the criticisms of this show is that we don't talk enough about Group of Five programs. And if you're following along, you'll see there aren't a lot of viewers for Group of Five programs. There's also not a lot of viewers for programs that have only gotten to be good recently. And I'm really going to throw Clemson into that because there was about a 30-year gap there, 35-year gap there, where Clemson was not at all near dominant. Decent, they were right there, but it's almost like talking about Wake Forest. If Wake Forest was dominant for the last 5 years, they just don't have the base there. You also have to take into account Clemson, South Carolina is home to 17,000 year-round residents, right? They have more kids going to school there than live there. Whereas you look at Michigan and the tentacles go all over, right? John U. Bacon. We could talk about great Michigan men who have been in office, right? Gerald Ford comes to mind. We also look at Notre Dame, and we know that Paul Hornung, rest him, was great. We also can look on broadcast sets, right, and look around and see Brady Quinn went to Notre Dame. Urban Meyer is an Ohio State guy. Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart, USC. Those are blue blood programs, right? It's really difficult to overlook those things. And even for some of those blue blood programs like USC, it's difficult to find viewers outside of Los Angeles, right? And what you're dealing with Michigan is all of the expectations that not just your alumni base have and your fans have, but college football fans have. Because one of the things that I have come to find out in the regional nature of college football is that people want to see the teams that they want to see in the playoff. They don't want to see the best teams in the playoff. They want to see the teams they want to see. As a matter of fact, I think Paul Feinbaum hit this on the head last year when it was looking like Utah might have an opportunity to play in the college football playoff. All they had to do was win the Pac-12 championship. And he said the nation does not want to see Utah in the playoff. And I think there was something to that, right? One of the reasons that Oklahoma ended up sliding in there, Oklahoma has that pedigree. When you think about Oklahoma, you think about Bud Wilkinson and Barry Switzer, and to a degree, Bob Stoops. You think about 47 straight. You think about hang half 100 on them. You think about the wishbone. Michigan, you think about Lloyd Carr, Bo Schembechler, right? You think about Charles Woodson going both ways. You think about Desmond Howard hitting the Heisman pose on the return. Like, it's like that. And Harbaugh went to school there, played quarterback there, understands what that is. I don't think that it's about whether or not he wants to win. Every single coach in America wants to win. Every player in America wants to win. But Michigan, like Texas, has to recruit with the best in the country to be as competitive as they want to be, right? If you look at Jim Harbaugh's record, if you just throw out this year, they've never been worse than 8-5, right? And the argument that is trotted out lazily is that, do you remember the Brady Hoke era or the Rich Rodriguez era? I think that's a lazy take because it doesn't take into account just how good they have been since Jim Harbaugh got there. They just have not been good against the teams they have to beat. They're beating all the teams they should, not the teams that they have to beat. They're bad against their rival in state, Michigan State, right? They are bad against Ohio State. He's never beaten them. And they're bad against Penn State, right? Which is another discussion altogether this year, as they got to play each other in 2 weeks. And you'd like to find out that one of those guys doesn't get fired after losing that game, but it feels like that's going to happen, especially if Penn State is still over and they lose to a bad Michigan football team. You're also taking a look at what their recruiting has been like. And quite honestly, Michigan has recruited well. They have not recruited with the best in the country. They finished as high as 5th in recruiting rankings and as low as 37th. I believe that's his first year. So that one I really kind of throw out. But they also haven't taken advantage of an Ohio State class that finished like 14th a couple years ago. They haven't been able to play in the Big Ten championship because they can't get past Ohio State. And that's a big deal. Like Indiana's going to run into that buzzsaw on Saturday. But Urban Meyer has been a name that's bandied about. I don't see it at Michigan. And if you're listening to the people that seem to know him well, he doesn't want to get back into coaching, right? Does not miss the stress, okay? And I understand that. But he's going to be a name that is bandied about, not unlike Bob Stoops, for eternity. Like Texas apparently has been looking that direction for some time. I think, one, because they know that Tom Herman and Chris Ash were both assistants for Urban Meyer, and Urban Meyer's basketball on grass, along with his recruiting, has really changed programs like Florida and like Ohio State into the national championship caliber teams they want to be. And if you can go to locations and turn them into national champions, nobody cares what kind of baggage you might be bringing with you. Not to say that he is, but we know how it ended at Ohio State. And if he did not have that amount of stress, I think he's still coaching there. He also really fired up the folks that are coaches on the Twitters and on the blogosphere. He gave a rant about it's not bad players, it's not bad coaches, people are good at their jobs. And I agree with that. He also did not buy into the idea of excuses. I agree with that too. I don't know that there's anything to disagree with what Urban Meyer said. It's about his delivery and how much he believed what he was saying. And you want to see that kind of conviction and that kind of devotion from all college football coaches. And that, I think, is the major difference between talking about guys like Urban Meyer, Mac Brown, Pete Carroll, and Jim Harbaugh, right? Harbaugh's not that kind of a personality. He has even appeared somewhat cocksure in situations where probably shouldn't appear that way. He's a bit eccentric too, right? These are not things that necessarily play well in public, and since perception is reality, he's going to have to win football games or change the way he does business, and I don't think he's going to change the way he does business. It's also become much more prevalent that coaches need to be good on the radio and be good on television, and that is going to help them and separate them. I think about Lincoln Riley in this way. He commands a podium. He commands an audience. He also appears to be empathetic to your questions and to the feelings of his players at a time when that is paramount. Think about Scott Frost at Nebraska. They're bad, and yet he is still their favorite. He's a good dude to them. He's a son to them, and he doesn't really take into account yelling at his players because he doesn't think that will work anymore. And I don't think that it will. Coaches that inspire not just their kids, but their fan base are the ones that I think have an opportunity to coach for a very long time. Wherever they go, people want to do what they ask them to do enthusiastically. I think about Mac Brown at UNC, right? They're playing outstanding football, even if it's in spurts. But you always want to be around a Mac Brown football program. I think James Franklin is actually closer to that kind of a coach than Jim Harbaugh, which is why it's wild frustrating that they haven't been very good. I get that they're down to their third string running back. I get that they've had injuries. I get that they haven't had things not go their way, right? They're basically the leaping off point for Indiana being great this year in a game that they dominated. So they're a good football team. And Pat Freiermuth is a great tight end, and they have dudes, right? Jahan Dotson. Even with Micah Parsons opting out. I think he's going to get another year, but I think that might be, a hot seat year for James Franklin. But if he doesn't recruit the way that we thought he was going to recruit, that's not going to matter. Because even as we talk noise about Jim Harbaugh, he's recruited better than Penn State over the last couple of years. And this is going to be a year in which Penn State does not earn a commitment from a top 10 player in the state of Pennsylvania, which is unconscionable, right? Should never happen. And yet here we are talking about it in that way. And then we saw that Sean Clifford got the hook for Will Levis, and you got a quarterback controversy on your hands in State College. I think there are things you can do to turn it around, but it's systemic, right? You have to actually take apart what you're doing, find out what's bad about it, and put it back together. Not block out the noise. Hear the noise. Hear what people are saying. Know where you stand with folks, but also have some faith in how you go about doing your job. And go do your job. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.